Hey everyone, welcome to Connie Reacts. I'm your host, and today we are reacting to episode 17 of season 3 of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I believe it's 17? Yeah. Okay, so season 3, episode 17, Star vs. the Forces of Evil. So last time we had a couple things happen. In the first half of the episode, we had the trial of Eclipsa, which ended in finding out that the High Commission had orchestrated a ruse, basically, to make it believe that Eclipsa's daughter was really this other girl, who they switched from, who they switched with Meteora from a nearby village, basically. So this other one, Festivia, was just this random chick, and ended up becoming princess and then queen kind of on a whim. Simply because Eclipsa's ex, the king, didn't want to deal with a half-monster child, which was Meteora. Now, after that, we find that Star doesn't believe she's a princess anymore, and the thing is, she's completely wrong about that. I kind of explained it last time, but you don't have to be born into royalty to be royalty. As I see it, there are three different ways to be royalty. You're either born into it, you take it, in which case it's kind of like you just take the throne by force or by some kind of trickery or something like that, or you are declared royalty, which kind of goes into the second one. So I'll even put in another one as well. You marry into it. Now, obviously, Star and her family, except, of course, River, didn't marry into it, but they were kind of declared royalty. The Magic High Commission took Festivia and declared her a princess, and so she was a princess. Again, she may not have been born into it, but in every other way, she's still royalty. Festivia and everyone onwards. So I really, really hope they don't end up pushing the show in a direction to where it actually does try to invalidate Star and Moon and all of them as royal, because it just wouldn't make sense to me. They're still royal. They weren't born into it, and it does change things quite a bit, but they're still royalty. But anyways, the second half of the last episode brought back Ludo. So his brother Dennis, after getting berated by his parents, ends up going out and, with help from Spider, searching for Ludo and finding him. So Ludo is crazy because it's Ludo, and Dennis is trying to help him, and he actually succeeds to a point. Now, Ludo's not completely better yet, though, because we see at the end that he's still talking to these dummies he made of Star and Marco, and it's kind of like this is the next step. I don't know if the ending of that was supposed to be menacing, like if that was what they were going for, like Ludo is supposed to be like, oh, this is menacing, this is creepy, this is weird, this is, like some dark foreshadowing or something, because it almost seemed like they were trying to make it seem like that, but it just didn't feel like that. Again, partially because, as I said last time, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it just didn't fit after the entire thing with Star and Moon and Eclipsa and the Magic High Commission. They should have continued to focus on that first. So having this just kind of out of nowhere just made no sense, to be honest. But also, it just didn't come off as menacing to me. It just didn't come off as even just eerie. It was just meh. So I don't know exactly what kind of tone they were going for with that, but if that's supposed to be like some kind of foreshadowing for something to come, like Ludo's gonna become like this main villain again, I mean, I don't mind him becoming a villain, but if that's gonna be your build-up, that's not good. Like, seriously, that's not good build-up. So I'm a little disappointed about how that's going. Again, though, I'm more interested in the Eclipsa and the royalty storyline, so I'm just really hoping that they don't mess that up by actually continuing on with the idea that Star and them aren't royalty, because that would just, it would mess up that entire storyline. I think it would be better if maybe Marco convinced her, like, hey, I was declared a princess. I'm considered by many to be royalty. I wasn't born into it. Why do you have to be? That would be amazing, actually. It would be great continuity for Marco being Princess Marco Turdina, and it would be just a really nice moment between the two that would showcase their friendship in a wonderful way. So I think it would work pretty much on all ends. Now, I think the Star should struggle with the idea, though. While I don't think it should become a big thing, I think I would like to see an episode where Star struggles with the idea of her identity as a princess, and Marco's trying to comfort her, trying to convince her and talk to her, but she's like not having it. But in the end, she finally listens to him, and that's when he goes over all of that. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly like that, of course, but something in that general realm is what I'm saying. um, because again, if they try to go with the idea that they're not royal, it would piss me off, to be honest. It would be a stupid decision. But anyways, so I don't know what we're actually getting this time, but I do hope that we go back into the Star and Eclipsa stuff and all of that, because we can't just leave it off on there and go off into random crap. The Ludo thing was one thing, but if we start to go into other random stuff in this episode, it's gonna really mess with the pacing and just overall feel of what's going on. You can't just leave it off there and then go into some random crap. You have to address that. You have to really focus on that at this point. It's a big deal, especially since we kind of got the impression that Star officially kind of declared Eclipsa free at the end there. And the High Commission are feeling guilty over what they did and everything, and hiding it for so long. This has to be, like, gone into. You can't just end it there and then go off into random crap. It does not work like that. It messes with the flow of the series. So I really think that it has to be this episode. Waiting any longer and just doing some other random stuff would just feel out of place. Maybe that's just me, though. Also, you may notice, this is the first reaction in a while, pretty much since I started this new channel after the old one was taken down, that I haven't been wearing a wig for a reaction. I don't want to right now. It's just like, the one wig, the long brown wig, is, it doesn't fit perfectly onto my head, so it's a little annoying to wear. And the other one is just like, it's a little messy and everything, and I just don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm just not. I mean, in my outro, one of my little chibi avatars has just my normal hair, so I am trying to grow this out, though. The last time I had it cut in any way was in November, like either the very end of October, like very end, like last couple days, or the very beginning of November. And so this is like so about 4.5 months of growth here. Which, I mean, I just wish it would grow faster, personally. Not important, though. We're going to get on to this episode, though, because I'm really interested to see where they go, and I really, really hope they don't take this in the wrong direction. Outside of that, there will be one more reaction coming today, and then more in the next couple days, and so yeah. Let's get on with this. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today, and yeah, I'll see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. This set of episodes really disappointed me. I won't lie. They mentioned the thing with Eclipsa and Star's really mixed feelings on everything very briefly, and just didn't touch on it again. The rest of these episodes were just random stuff, just random things that were happening. And granted, yes, I think they're going to have lasting consequences in the future, but still. Um, so let us discuss these. The first episode, or the first half of the episode, I should say, had Star and Marco finding out that Buff Frog has apparently left. Um, so Marco decides to let Tom go with Star, and she and Tom are trying to find them. And even the monster village is just completely empty. And it's found out that the monsters are trying to leave, and that they just don't feel like anything's really changing for them. And I have some issues with this episode. Um, First off, while it was definitely well made and well emotional, well written, all that, it makes no sense. It's kind of what was said in the episode. Star made real progress. Buff Frog was working in the castle. Oh boy, the commute's a little long. Um, and people in the castle still are afraid of him. That just means you should give up. You made one huge bit of progress there. You can't make any more if you just give up. It's like you're literally running away from your problems, which is never the answer. And then you have the fact that Tom gave that really touching and moving speech about, yes, he's a monster too. And that was good to touch on because that was kind of brought up in the past. And it's like, okay, is Tom technically a monster? I mean, they don't really consider it. And what about Hecapoo or Romulus or any of them? And the answer this episode kind of gave is yes, they're all monsters too, but because they're in power, because they're rich or whatever else, people don't view them as such. It's a completely terrible double standard. And the fact that in the end, Buff Frog and the others still decided to leave, it just doesn't feel right. And not just because I didn't want them to leave. No. It just doesn't feel right for the story. It feels like the show's kind of trying to say that when times get tough like this, you should give up. That you should just give up and wait until things align in your favor, and that's not right. That's actually a very bad message to talk about. You should be fighting for these rights no matter what, and you should not be giving up. You should be continuing to work towards it. It's just a really bad message, I feel, that it's teaching those who view the show. And it just doesn't sit right with me. But then we had the second half of this episode. And in this one, yeah. So we find out that Marco's parents are having another child, another son, who I guess they're choosing to call Marco Jr., which is the dumbest thing ever. It's not even a funny joke. Like, they were trying to make a joke out of it, like, oh, but that's not how it works. That's not how the junior thing works. And it's like, okay, you're right, and it's how this isn't funny. Like, what's the point of this? So I really hope they do end up changing the name. But either way, this episode just, yes, it's going to have an effect in the future. Marco's going to have a new baby brother, but it kind of felt pointless. And again, it wasn't a poorly written episode or anything. It was well written and funny at points, but see, I said at the beginning of this redirect, before I watched this all, that they needed to get back into the main plot of things, that they needed to continue with the main story and not just go off in random directions. And this is what I was afraid of. While this episode isn't technically bad, it's actually, again, well written and all, it breaks the flow of the series, and especially of this season, to do this. Having Tom in there is fine. Having Marco's parents in there is fine. But they needed to do more than just a very, very minimal address of the situation. The first episode, I mean, take out the entire monster issue because honestly, that was so poorly done there. Take that out. I mean, that's the only like poorly written part of this episode, by the way, pretty much. Take that out and instead have Star and Tom working through this issue about who Star is and how she identifies herself. You could still bring in the idea of Tom being a monster and all. And heck, even bring in the monsters, like questioning on whether or not they should leave. But have it like Tom explains how he too is a monster and all, and maybe he even uses that to inspire Star on how she views herself as a princess now that everything's happened. That would have, if you combined all of that in the right way, it would have been perfect. And it would have properly addressed things. But just one little mention of like, oh, I'm confused about where I stand now. It's like, and then pretty much just waving it off felt wrong. It felt like they're just trying to break the tension of everything that had just happened by going back to the like story of the week episodes. And in some cases that's fine, but you have to leave off the previous episode in a way that isn't basically a cliffhanger. Last episode, or well, the first part of last episode with the Eclipse thing, left off on kind of a cliffhanger with like Star's like, oh, we're not even really royal, are we? And then just kind of frees Eclipse and just walks away. We need some resolution to that, and we didn't get any with this last half of the last episode, and then any of this episode. It's just moving on to other random stuff because they're trying to, I guess, again, like, lower us down from the intensity that we had just seen from everything. They're trying to just soften the show at the moment, and that's the wrong move. You don't need to soften this with random Story of the Week episodes. You shouldn't be. You could have had the important stuff that was in these episodes and still focused on what was important. You could have still had it brought up that Marco's parents were pregnant. That could have still been a thing. You could have still had the entire thing with Tom and the monsters, as I mentioned before. You could have still done that stuff, but you should have had the focus on what was going on. The entire painting thing, like, it wasn't funny to me. It wasn't, like, bad or anything. It wasn't, like, annoying or overly dumb or just poorly done. I got the idea behind it. It even had, like, a hint of a Dorian Gray vibe to it, which I'm a fan of, so. But the problem is that it just felt like they're trying to force new things in and trying to bring the show back to what it used to be. And that's not what we want, at least not what I want. I love where the show's gone. It's one of the reasons why it's continuously rising in the ranks of my favorite shows of all time. Because it's changing its style, because it's going to new places and doing new things, and because the tone of the series has changed to such a degree. Now, I'm not saying get rid of the lighthearted comedy moments and stuff. Just, you have to know when to pace them out and where to put them into the series, and this was not the right placement for these episodes. It felt like it came out of nowhere, and it feels like it's just purposefully trying to avoid, like, discussing the important situation that's going on here. I don't know, it bothers me. It bothers me because it feels like they're forcing it in for the sake of having it there. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel right. It just does not feel like it belongs here. And I'm going to stress this again. These episodes, the part with Ludo last time and then the two halves of this episode, were not bad. Yes, the first part of this episode with the monsters and all had some issues for sure. But in general, they were not bad. I'm not complaining about them as much. I'm more complaining about the fact that these episodes were done at this point. You could have still done these episodes, like the stuff with Ludo and Dennis, the stuff with the monsters leaving, and the stuff with Marco and his parents having a new child. That could have still been done. But you should have gotten the other stuff done first, or done like I said before, and kind of compromised while focusing on the main plot, and then having this stuff kind of just as background stuff going on. So yeah, this episode massively disappointed me. Not because of the quality of the episode itself, but because of its placement and its just forced feeling. Maybe you see it differently, and if you do, that's great. I always encourage people to view shows and stuff in the way that they do. Don't just take my word for it. Don't just view my opinion as the go-to for the series. Form your own. Tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode. What did you think of the monsters leaving? What did you think of Tom's little speech there? And what do you think of the entire thing with Marco having a baby and the Dorian Gray style painting gag that they did? Tell me those thoughts and more down below. Please, I want to know what you think about this episode. And if you liked it, tell me so. Just because I had an issue with it, a major issue, doesn't mean I think you should too. If you liked it, let me know. That's great. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, I'm just hoping next time with episode 18 they get back on track. Because if they continue to just go off the rails, it's just But I got one more thing to record today, so I should probably get to that. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and for now, I'm Connie Royal, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
Or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles,